I was taking a nap after putting the baby down when I woke up to my mother-in-law standing over me. Your baby was crying. You didn't hear it. So I took him. I panicked, ran to the nursery. He wasn't there. I found her downstairs feeding him formula I'd explicitly said he was allergic to. My husband just said, "She's helping. You were asleep." That night, I found legal guardianship forms in his office drawer. Her name was listed first. I never thought I'd be the type of woman to end up in a story like this. I was the careful one, the planner. I made to-do lists and tracked feeding times and had every emergency number on the fridge. I wasn't careless. I wasn't emotional. But I guess none of that matters when the people closest to you decide to treat you like a problem they need to solve. This started when I gave birth to my son, James, 6 months ago. Todd, my husband, and I had moved to Boise, Idaho not long before. We wanted a quieter life, cheaper housing, more space. I didn't have any family nearby, but Todd's mother, Diane, lived just 2 hours away. She was around a lot more than I expected. At first, I thought she was just being helpful. That's what everyone says, right? She means well. She's just trying to help. She brought groceries. She cooked bland, salty casseroles I didn't want. She folded laundry that didn't belong to her. I didn't like it, but I kept my mouth shut because that's what you're supposed to do with in-laws. But Diane had opinions. On everything. I was breastfeeding, and she said it made James fussy. I should just try formula. I said no. She accidentally gave him formula anyway when I was in the shower. James had a violent reaction. Hives all over his chest and face. He threw up until he was dry heaving. We rushed him to the ER. That's when the doctor said he had a dairy allergy and warned us not to give him cow's milk again, especially not formula. I was terrified. Diane just said, "He probably had a bad burp. Babies do that." Todd barely said anything. That was the first red flag. I wanted to believe it was just a mistake. I needed to believe that. But things didn't get better. Diane kept pushing. She said I was too attached, that I needed to let him cry it out, that I was spoiling him because I held him too much. I told her to stop. I reminded her he was my son. She smiled, nodded, and kept doing whatever she wanted. Todd was useless. She's just being old-fashioned. She doesn't mean any harm. You're tired, babe. You're overreacting. He didn't want conflict. I was starting to realize he didn't want much of anything except to keep Diane happy. Now here's where things turned. 2 weeks ago, on a Tuesday, I just put James down for his nap. He'd had a rough night before, so I was exhausted. I lay down on the couch with the baby monitor right next to me. I must have fallen asleep. I woke up and Diane was standing over me.
No noise.
No warning. Just her, staring. You didn't hear him crying, she said, like a teacher scolding a student. So I took him. I shot up, ran to the nursery. The crib was empty. I was still half asleep, and I felt this cold, sick wave crawl over my body. I screamed for him. No answer. I ran downstairs. She was in the kitchen, holding James in one arm, feeding him with the other. A bottle, not the one I use. I got closer. It was formula, the same brand he'd had the allergic reaction to. I recognized the container because I had thrown it in the trash after the ER visit. She must have pulled it out. My voice cracked when I screamed, "He's allergic to that." She didn't flinch. She kept holding the bottle to his mouth. "He needs nutrition. You're starving him," she said like it was obvious. I rushed over and snatched him out of her arms. He started crying. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Todd walked in from the garage right then, holding his phone like nothing was wrong.
"She's helping," he said.
You were asleep. That was it. No concern. No outrage. No apology. Just those words. Like it was all my fault for being tired. I didn't say anything else to either of them. I locked myself and James in the bedroom for the rest of the night. He was fine. Thankfully, he hadn't swallowed much. I cried while I held him. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, Todd kissed me on the forehead like he hadn't said something completely insane the night before. He left for work. I couldn't let it go. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just a mistake. Something was off. So I waited for him to leave. Then I went into his office. He started locking it a few weeks ago, said it was because of sensitive client materials. But I'd seen where he kept the spare key. The office was spotless, like it always was. Todd's a neat freak. But I checked every drawer. In the bottom filing cabinet, behind some tax stuff and retirement statements, was a manila folder. I opened it. Legal guardianship of James Todd Myers. Primary. Diane Myers. Secondary. Todd Myers. I wasn't even listed. My name wasn't anywhere on the paperwork. Not as guardian. Not as co-signer. Nothing. It looked like a draft and signed, but it was real, with the name of a local family attorney at the top. I took pictures of every page. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped my phone once. I sat there staring at the papers, trying to understand what I was looking at. That's when I knew I wasn't just imagining things. They were planning something. And if I didn't act soon, I was going to lose my baby. I made a plan. I wasn't going to confront Todd yet. Not until I knew more. Not until I had something that could actually protect me.
So, I did what I had to do.
I called my sister in Phoenix. She's a paralegal. I hadn't told her anything before, because she and Todd don't get along and I didn't want to start drama. But I told her everything now. She didn't say, "Are you sure?" She said, "I'll find you a lawyer. Today." That was the moment I felt hope again. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to document everything. Every message. Every voicemail. Every time Diane showed up without warning. I started keeping a notebook. I started recording the baby monitor. I made copies of every doctor's note and allergy report. I started building a wall they couldn't climb, because they thought they could take my son away from me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I kept quiet for the next few days. Pretended everything was fine. I smiled when I had to. I acted like nothing had changed. But inside, I was getting ready. I was watching. Every move they made, every word they said, I was paying attention. I started carrying a hidden voice recorder. I used an old phone my sister mailed me and tucked it under James' changing table. I needed proof, and I was going to get it. That Friday, Diane came over uninvited again. Todd said, "She just wants to spend time with the baby." I told him I was tired and didn't want visitors. He told me I was being rude. She walked into the house with her own keys. That's right. She had a key. I never gave her one. Todd must have. That day, I let her do what she wanted. She sat on the couch with James while I watched from the kitchen, pretending to clean. Then she said something I will never forget. She looked down at James and said, in that soft, fake sweet voice, "Soon we'll get you somewhere safe, won't we? Grandma's going to make everything better." I stood still. My hands were shaking. That night I listened to the recording. I played that line over and over. I sent it to my lawyer. Yes, my lawyer. My sister got me in touch with someone who deals with custody issues and domestic coercion cases. I met with him privately during a fake grocery run. He told me exactly what to do. The next twist came the following week. Todd came home from work and asked me how I felt about a little break. He said I looked stressed, exhausted. That Diane offered to take James for a few nights so I could catch up on sleep. I said no. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's already set up. She'll pick him up tomorrow." My whole body went cold. I asked him, "What gives you the right to make that decision without me?" He said, "You're not well. You need rest. It's just a few days." He said it like it was reasonable, like I was some unstable person who needed managing. That night, I packed bags. Not for James. For me. I didn't leave right away. I needed more time. I needed one more thing to make my case airtight. So I waited. And then it came. That weekend, Diane came by again. She said, in front of Todd, "You know, the attorney said everything looks good. We'll have it handled by next month." My blood froze. I asked her, "What attorney?" She said, Oh, Todd didn't tell you? We've been working with someone to get things lined up, just in case something happens to you. She smiled. Todd looked at the floor. That was it. I had enough. I told them I was taking James to the park the next morning. Instead, I drove 3 hours to a safe house my lawyer arranged with the help of a domestic support network. I had James' medical records, the guardianship documents, the voice recordings, the photos. Everything. I stayed silent. No phone calls. No texts. I filed an emergency custody order. When Todd finally reached me, 3 days later, he said, "Where are you?" "Diane's worried sick." I said, "You won't see us until a judge says you can." He lost it.
Swore at me.
Called me crazy. Said I was kidnapping our son. I sent him a screenshot of the temporary custody order. I said, "You try to take him from me behind my back. Now it's my turn to protect him from you." I don't know what kind of man I married. I don't know if he ever really loved me, or if this was always the plan. But I know this. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd be easy to control. They were wrong. After I served Todd the emergency custody paperwork, I expected him to fight dirty. What I didn't expect was how fast he did it, or how low he and Diane were willing to go. 3 days after he got the order, I got a knock on the door at the safe house.
It was CPS.
Someone filed an anonymous report saying I was unstable, neglecting James, and paranoid to the point of delusion. They claimed I was isolating the baby, refusing to let anyone near him, and might be suffering from postpartum psychosis. I knew exactly who did it. The CPS worker was polite but firm.
She had to do a full wellness check.
She asked to see James. Asked if I was taking any medication. Asked if I had anyone who could verify my state of mind. I handed her the pediatrician's letter stating James was healthy, well-fed, and that I'd been following all allergy-related precautions. I showed her the custody papers. The lawyer had prepared a packet for this exact situation. I even gave her the recordings, the documents from Todd's office, and the text messages from Diane calling me emotionally erratic. She was quiet for a long time before finally saying, "I've seen moms who aren't okay. You're not one of them." She left. She filed a clean report. But the damage was done. My heart was racing for hours. And worse, James had felt it. He cried nonstop that night. He picked up on the tension like a sponge. The next day, I got a letter from Todd's lawyer. He was filing for full custody. The letter said I'd abducted our son, that I had abandoned the marital home, and that Todd and Diane had grave concerns about my mental state. I laughed when I read that part. Not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe how fast they flipped the script. Then the real kicker came. Included in the court filing was a character affidavit written by Diane. In it, she claimed I once dropped the baby and then blamed her for it, that I refused to feed him properly, and that I locked myself in rooms for hours while the baby cried. She said she feared for his safety under my care. It was all lies. Every word. But now it was in writing on court record. My lawyer told me, "They're not trying to win fairly. They're building a case to destroy your credibility." So I hit back harder. I gave my lawyer the daycare application Todd had filled out listing Diane as the emergency contact without my consent. I gave them the name of the attorney listed on the guardianship forms. They subpoenaed emails. We filed a motion to depose Diane. Then I did one more thing. I reached out to Todd's ex-girlfriend. I never liked her. I didn't want to go there. But desperate times. She told me something that made my blood run cold. Todd always talked about wanting to raise a kid with his mom. Like, not with a partner. He'd joke about how she was the only woman who understood him. It creeped me out. That was the missing puzzle piece. This wasn't just about control. It wasn't just about Diane wanting to be a grandma. They had planned this. Together. I don't know when the idea formed, but it was real. I was just the vessel. They didn't want me. They wanted my son. I passed all this to my lawyer. We filed for a restraining order against Diane. We pushed for supervised visitation only, with a third party present. Todd called me that night. His voice was calm, but fake. You don't have to go through with this, he said. You're scared. I get it. But you're making this worse than it needs to be. I said, you tried to erase me. You forged a life where I didn't exist. He said, Diane was just planning for the worst. It was just precaution. I asked him, then why wasn't I listed on the guardianship forms? Why were you trying to give my son to your mother behind my back?
He paused.
Then he said, because you weren't supposed to see them. That told me everything. That phone call was the last time I spoke to Todd like a wife. After he said, you weren't supposed to see them, I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I was done. Something inside me snapped, quietly, completely. From that point on, I stopped talking and let the evidence speak for me. The court hearing came 2 weeks later. Diane didn't show up. She sent a statement instead, saying she feared for her safety because I was unpredictable and vindictive. Todd came. He wore a suit. He looked like he thought he could charm the judge. For a second, I almost believed he would. But then the judge started asking questions. Why was the mother of the child not listed on the guardianship documents? Why did the emergency contact forms at daycare not include her? Why was Diane caught on audio saying, soon we'll get you somewhere safe? Why did CPS find no concerns, despite the report filed by someone using Diane's home IP address? Todd started fumbling. He said it was all miscommunication. That the guardianship forms were a draft. That they were just planning for, what if something happened? The judge wasn't buying it. Then my lawyer dropped the final hammer. He handed the judge the printed text conversation between Diane and Todd. The one I wasn't supposed to see. We got it through subpoena. Diane had texted Todd, if we wait too long, she'll wise up. File the papers. Get it moving. I'll raise him right. Todd replied, I'll handle her. She's too tired to notice anyway. The courtroom went silent. The judge looked right at Todd. You are preparing to remove this child from his mother without her knowledge or consent. You weaponized legal systems against her. You used Child Protective Services as a tool for intimidation. And you encouraged your mother to do the same. Todd opened his mouth, closed it, didn't say a word. Then came the ruling. I was granted full physical and legal custody of James. Todd was granted supervised visitation twice a month at a county facility. Diane was barred from contact until James turned 18 or until a court said otherwise. But that wasn't the end. I filed for divorce the next day. Todd fought it for a while. Then he gave up when I filed a civil case against Diane for emotional distress and endangerment related to James' allergy. She settled out of court. The settlement didn't make me rich, but it paid for a new apartment, paid for the lawyer, paid for the therapy James and I both needed. And here's the part one don't say with pride, but I do say it with peace. I sent a copy of every court document to Todd's boss, to his HR department, to the firm's board.
Why?
Because one of the emails subpoenaed in the case, one Todd sent from his work account, said, she's losing it. Diane's ready to take over. We just need to get the doctor to say she's not stable. HR fired him within a week. Violation of company ethics policy. Last I heard, he moved in with Diane. Or what's left of her. Her church disowned her when they found out about the custody fraud. Turns out she wasn't as respected as she thought. And me? I'm in Phoenix now, near my sister. James is 1 year old. He laughs in his sleep. He reaches for me when he's scared. He is safe. He is loved. And no one, not his father, not his grandmother, gets to touch him without my say-so. I was the tired mom, the overreacting wife, the emotional one. But in the end, I was the one who saw through everything, the one who protected him. And I don't regret a single thing.